Big, bulky, chunky, heavy, angular, a beast. This is the Boldr Odyssey 45, a watch ready for any adventure you may have planned. But is it suitable for those of us who live a more laid-back lifestyle? I'll review this watch and assess its fit and feel on the wrist. Stay tuned to this episode of Adventures with Time. Welcome to another episode of Adventures with Time, where I share with you my activities with watches and watch collecting. Today we are looking at the new Boldr Odyssey 45. Launched in March of 2021, this is the latest addition to the Boldr Odyssey series. Now, I've been aware of Boldr for a few years and actually considered the Boldr Expedition and the Venture as a field watch, but they weren't what I was looking for in a field watch. I'll leave a link to that video on field watches at the end. The Boldr Odyssey 45 is a dive watch, not a field watch. The first comments made in every review of this watch that I've seen calls it big and chunky and heavy and a beast. Many of us wear dive watches even though we have never gone scuba diving. We like the styling of these watches with their rotating bezels, and we admire the engineering to make them water resistant down to extreme depths. The Odyssey 45 certainly has been designed for diving. It even comes in this case, waterproof case I assume. I don't know what this little button is for. Let's take a look inside and see what we have. Now remember, this is a watch on loan, so it's already been peeled of all its protective plastic coating. Instruction manual, microfiber cloth, and the watch. Let's take a closer look. Let's take some measurements of this stainless steel case. Normally people measure the diameter of watches by finding the shortest diameter of the case. That's hard to do with this watch because of all the angles. I've seen people measure this watch from these two notches here, and that gives me about 46 millimeters. But if I measure from the side here with the helium escape valve to the edge of the crown guard, I get just about 45.5 millimeters, which is the stated size on the Boldr website. Thickness comes in at 16.2 millimeters. That crown is a big 9 millimeters. And measuring the lug to lug is interesting because these end links are male, which stick out a bit and are fixed. Let me first measure the case, which is about 52.8 millimeters from my measurement. But if you include those fixed end links, I get about 58 millimeters. No matter how you measure it, it's a big watch. Size for my wrist, which means using all the links, and set to the smallest of the 6 micro adjustment positions, it weighs a whopping 250 grams. It comes with the Miyota 9015 movement, quite acceptable for a watch in this price range. As I mentioned, it has a helium escape valve given the 500-meter depth rating, but the valve is flush with the case side, so really not noticeable or intrusive. The bezel is 120-click unidirectional with diver layout, and I believe that's a sapphire top to the bezel. Also a sapphire crystal that is double domed with AR coating on the underside. Now I'm getting quite a reflection from these studio lights, but we'll take a look under natural light later to get a better idea. Screw down case back with the design of a trident and what looks to be a stylized octopus. This seems to have a very nice bracelet with fold-over clasp, double pushers, and a security flap that clicks into place. All milled parts and 6 micro-adjustment positions. The outer links use screws for easy sizing, and this bracelet does taper down a bit to 20 millimeters from the 22 millimeter lug width. Those are the specs. Let's look at some of the design aesthetics. In addition to being a very large and heavy watch, the Odyssey 45 is very angular in design. In fact, I don't think it has any curved sides except for this outer edge here with the helium escape valve, somewhat like my Seiko Samurai with its angles, although the Boldr appears more angular given its larger size. The bezel action is fairly good to my fingers. A little slippery, but if you get your fingers in these notches, you get a real good grasp. It has a relatively large crown that makes it easy for winding and setting the time and making sure that the crown is securely screwed down. As I said, it has 22 millimeter lug widths. This lug goes from here to here. This is sort of a faux link design with these grooves in the end link. And there are no drilled lug holes because these end links come with quick release spring bars. Fairly flexible links which should provide for a comfortable fit. Again, we'll check those out on my wrist later. Interestingly, there is no diver extension, but given that most of us are not divers, that's not a problem for me. Now let's take a close-up look at that green dial. It's a vibrant green, just a little brighter than my Seiko Alpinist. And there's a lot of green, from the bezel to the outer ring with the minute track, to the sunburst inner ring with the applied hour indices and the date window at 6 o'clock position, to the textured center dial. I would call that a pebble texture. Everything seems to line up. The bezel may look a bit off, but when I adjust the camera to flat over the 12 o'clock position, you see it's all good. I think based on the website, I would prefer the silver wave dial. I think it has a very cool and sharp look to it. What do you think between these 4 dial colors? The critical question for this watch is, how does it fit and feel on my 7 7/8 inch wrist? I've been wearing this watch now for a couple days. I do think that's given me enough time to get a feel for this watch. The biggest concern I have about the Odyssey is that it would be top heavy and rotate on my wrist as I move, but it doesn't move that much. You can see that the fixed end links, even with those protruding parts, doesn't make this watch longer than my wrist, in that it doesn't overhang the edges of my wrist. Whether the watch head would be that stable on a smaller wrist is a question that I can't answer. Even though it has a relatively flat bottom, the downward angles at the lugs gives the appearance of a curved case that conforms to one's wrist. And the bracelet has a nice, smooth, and comfortable feel. No complaints here. The more I wear this watch, the better I like it. However, for me, there is too much green. I think I'd like the silver wave dial better. The real breaking points about this watch for me are the size and the weight. The Odyssey is just too big and heavy. There is this constant weight on your wrist, and although on my wrist it looks okay with a short sleeve shirt, it is just too big when wearing a long sleeve shirt. I haven't worn it enough with a dress shirt, but I do believe that most cuffs would catch, and this watch would just not feel and look right with a long sleeve button shirt. Although at this size, it could be like wearing Wonder Woman's bracelets, protecting me from lasers and any other harm. But aside from that, I don't think it's a watch for me. But thanks for watching. I'll be bringing you more videos on both micro and major brand watches, like these I've already published. Until my next video, good hunting and happy collecting.